This is a special broadcast on Times Now. Donald Trump has struck Iran. At least 3 nuclear facilities have been hit. The United States is still assessing the damage. But there's a lot of posturing going on after the US strike. Let's bring in American activist and author Brigitte Gabriel, who's joining us to talk more about it. Ms. Gabriel, thank you for speaking to Times Now. I want to start by mentioning something that you have said. Iran is the head of the snake, with the US and Israel now directly targeting Iranian nuclear facilities. Do you see this as the beginning of the end of the Iranian regime?
Yes, Iran is the head of the snake, and right now we are cutting off the head of the snake. I think this is the beginning of the end for the mullahcracy in Iran. I think after this bombardment, it not only rendered Iran paralyzed when it comes to its nuclear ambition and nuclear program, but it also humiliated Iran in front the leadership in front of its people and on the world stage. And I believe with the with the continuous bombing of Israel, especially the bombing today on the prison in Tehran, freeing all the rebels who were imprisoned who tried to topple the regime, the best and the brightest who have been captured by the Iranian regime. I think this is the beginning of the end. We're going to see an uprising once the Iranian people get access to the internet and see how weakened the regime is. I believe this is right now the beginning of the end.
Well, the Americans are not wanting to do a regime change. At least that's the message coming out. But we'll come to that later. Ms. Gabriel, do you believe we are now entering the most dangerous phase of Iran's proxy war strategy?
Iran's proxy war strategy has been going on for over 10 years now. We have seen the empowerment, actually for over 20 years, we have seen the empowerment of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran spent billions of dollars arming Hezbollah in Lebanon, 150,000 missiles. We have seen Iran empowering the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, the Shiite militias in Iraq. So we have seen Iran directly involved in setting up their proxies who have committed terrorist attacks in all of these countries that I mentioned, who have terrorized the countries. And so Iran didn't just start now. What we are doing right now is weakening Iran because we cut off the money spigot that was funding Hezbollah, that was funding Hamas, that was funding the Houthis, that was funding terror attack across the globe. I believe we're going to see less attacks driven by the Iranian funding through its proxies right now to just lone wolf attacks, which we have been seeing anyway, whether it was Al-Qaeda or ISIS, you know, the radical Islamists rising across the globe, committing terrorist attacks against American target. That's nothing new. We've seen that since 9/11, 2001, since the attacks of 9/11. But as of Iran funding their proxies to commit terrorist attacks the way they were, I think that has ended because Iran doesn't have the funding to pour the money into its terror proxies around the world.
Ms. Gabriel, let me ask you this. With China, Russia, Turkey, and even Pakistan now condemning the American action, what do you make of this commentary which is going on?
I think it's expected out of these countries. I mean, after all, they have business relationship and coalitions with Iran. I believe the rest of the world in general, the Europeans are on the side of the Americans and were involved in the attack as well. Look, Iran, China, and Russia were trying to create, and North Korea were trying to create a counterbalance to the United States in the Middle East. Iran wanted to establish hegemony in the Middle East. This is exactly why the Arab states, like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, and the likes, came to the side of the Americans and the Israelis and actually are working with the Americans and the Israelis. Remember, the Jordanians intercepted Iranian missiles and had their airplanes in the air, basically trying to stop Iranian missiles from heading into Israel. So the Arabs right now are celebrating because Iran was a part of the axis of evil. And I believe China and Russia are weakened because of what happened to Iran right now. The Europeans are going to be good. The Europeans are going to be fine. Actually, it's going to bring them closer to working with the United States, especially if Iran shuts off the Straits of Hormuz.
Right.
The Chinese are not going to suffer much because China's going to get its oil from Russia. They're going to work closely with the Russians, but the Europeans will be 100% dependent on the United States and will bring them closer to the United States.
Because, Ms. Gabriel, you were talking about Pakistan and 9/11. I want to ask you about Trump's apparent duplicity on Pakistan and terror. The military leader of a country that sheltered Osama bin Laden. You would remember Osama. Osama's Al-Qaeda, the organization terror group behind 9/11. This was followed by the same country condemning the US strikes on Iran 4 days. But despite the certified terror past of Pakistan, Donald Trump invites Munir for a lunch at the White House. What's going on?
President Trump extends a hand to anybody and everybody who is willing to come to the table and reason with them about why we need to have peace and stability around the world. Look what he did with the new president of Syria, the Islamic radical president who has ties to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. He's basically the baby child of both Al-Qaeda and ISIS, yet President Trump extended a hand to him and said, okay, we can bring you to the fold. We will drop the sanctions on Syria, and let's see how we can work together. And look, it worked because even Syria said they're not going to get involved and in supporting Iran or doing anything with Iran. So we have a saying in America: you have your friends close, but your enemies closer, because that's the best way to keep an eye on them. President Trump is a very wise man in the way he may extend a hand in peace, but he's not a fool. He will not be fooled, and he will not be betrayed, and he will strike very swiftly when his allies betray him, as you have seen with Trump. Trump is not a gullible person. He may extend the hand of peace, but he will not be taken advantage of.
Well, Ms. Gabriel, Trump may be a wise man. There's no Nobel Peace for Wisdom, as of now. But you're conceding that Pakistan is an enemy that the US needs to keep close, an ally now that has, betrayed the US in the past.
Look, Pakistan harbored Osama bin Laden. Pakistan harbored radical Islamic terrorists. Pakistan, with its radicals, have always sided with radical Islamic terrorism. Where I stand as somebody who works in national security and works closely with the government on, I have my own personal opinion about Pakistan. However, we have had very weak leadership before President Trump. President Obama was a pushover. President Biden was a pushover. President Trump is not a pushover. President Trump is trying to reset the policy of the United States and the way our enemies and our foes behave toward the United States in the last 20 years. He is pushing the reset button. As we have seen what he did with Iran, he said no red line will be crossed and will not be tolerated. The Iranians misunderstood and underestimated President Trump based on past experience. Right now, President Trump is rebalancing the relationship between our enemies and our friends, because he is letting them know there's a new leadership in the United States and there are new rules that we go by in the United States. You cross us, there will be a price to pay. You work with us, you will be rewarded, and everybody will be fine. And that's the new policy moving forward.
So you're not answering my question directly. I understand your compulsion, Ms. Gabriel, but you've also said, I'm quoting you, be alert for Iranian regime sleeper cells throughout the United States, unquote. Now, given your national security background, how do you see protests in, New York against the US strikes on Iran?
Look, the wonderful thing about a democratic republic, we are a constitutional republic in the United States, and one thing we pride ourselves on is having free speech. Americans are free to protest and express their opinion about any war, and this has been done with the war with North Korea. This has been done with the war with Vietnam. It did not change the policy of the administration, but Americans are willing to protest. I mean, look at the protests against what Israel has been doing in Gaza. It did not change American policy towards Israel or towards Gaza. So Americans are free to protest and express their opinion. As for the sleeper cells in the United States, we already know that, especially because of the open borders under the Democratic regime in the last 4 years in America under President Biden, we have opened our borders. He has allowed millions of people to enter our country unvetted. Under President Trump, we have had zero people come into the country right now, especially in the last months. And so we know there are sleeper cells in America. We know that we looked at the Iranians that have crossed the border under Biden, and we have identified 1,273 Iranians who have crossed the border illegally in the last 4 years, and they are right now roaming the United States. They can be activated. They can carry suicide mission because, radical Islamists want to die as a martyr. They would be willing to carry suicide mission. This is why in America we are warning the public right now. If you see something, say something. Stay awake, stay vigilant, keep your eyes out if you see something out of the ordinary. But this is something that we cannot control in general. We have to be successful every single time. But all the radicals have to be successful is once when they carry a terrorist attack. That's way too much, but things will happen.
Ms. Gabriel, if you invite someone as radical as Asim Munir to the White House,
for example,
the world is watching.
Yesterday, we're going to see things like this happen, but that's a chance. That's the world we live in today, with Islamic radicals roaming the earth, whether it's in America, whether it's in Britain,
That's the
Europe,
point I'm
Germany,
making,
France.
Ms. Gabriel.
You have seen
An Islamist
lone
radical
wolf
like
terrorist
Munir
attacks taking
got a
place
red
in
carpet
Europe,
welcome in White House.
Australia, and all around the world. This is the new reality of the 21st century terrorism with radical Islamic fanatics.
President Trump now says, MEGA, make Iran great again. Does the US now believe that regime change in Iran is the only way forward, the only long-term solution?
We will not be involved in a regime change. This is not the goal of the United States. When we attacked the nuclear reactor in Iran, we did not attack the nuclear reactor because of regime change. We attacked the nuclear reactor because we wanted peace and stability in the United States and across the Middle East and across the world, but specifically in the Middle East. Now remember, Iran exported terrorism to 4 continents across the globe. Iran's terrorism is not just limited to the Middle East. The only hope the Iranians have to bring about stability in Iran is an uprising, and the Iranian people have tried to do that time and time again, but the world did not come to their aid. As a matter of fact, President Obama, under both Obama and Biden, they sent pallets of cash to Iran trying to appease them. Biden lifted the sanctions on Iran trying to appease them, but nobody stood with the people of Iran rising. Right now, under President Trump, we have a different leadership. We are encouraging the people of Iran to rise up. The Iranian people are educated people. The Iranian people are peaceful people. There is a huge difference. When you talk about the Iranian people, you're talking about the people that make up Iran. The regime is the minority, and the regime is the radical Islamic mullahcracy.
The same logic applies to Pakistan as well.
Trying to keep them down. The majority of the Iranians, 70% of Iran, is under the age of 35. They have never experienced life outside of a radical regime. They are now exposed to the internet. Because of the internet, They have seen how the rest of the world lives. They have seen the modernization, the cooperation between countries across the world, and they want to be a part of that. They want to be included in the 21st century
Right.
modernization and expansion of doing good in the world. And I believe they know that this is their time. I believe once the Iranians will have access again to the internet, because right now, since the Operation Lion started by Israel, the Iranian regime cut off the internet. So the Iranian people don't have a clue how badly the regime has been weakened.
Okay.
Once the Iranians have access to the internet again and see that this is their opportunity because of the weakened regime, they will rise again. And right now, they will understand that they have a chance in taking back their country and getting rid of the regime once and for all. But America is not in the war for
Well,
regime change.
Ms. Gabriel, I don't know what will happen in Iran, but after this project, this pet project of Donald Trump, maybe the US should find time to look at Pakistan, that is equally rogue, if not more, has nuclear capability, unlike Iran, that is still, trying to make nuclear weapons. So the hypocrisy of Donald Trump on multiple counts is being judged by the free world, as he likes to invoke that phrase time and again. Miss Brigitte Gabriel, thank you for speaking to Times Now.